changing lives through aviation.
Hello and welcome to the Insight Aviation Podcast, brought to you by Wayman Aviation Academy. We're a flight academy here in South Florida that's offering visas for international students and full financing for our U.S. citizens and residents. Today we have the great honor of welcoming Captain Domingo Alfaro, who has spent his career at American Airlines, chief pilot, and now I believe flight director. Welcome, Captain Alfaro.
Welcome, and thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here.
So I'd like to really kind of just jump into it. I know that you recently had this move from chief pilot to director of flight. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, it just happened this past June. So
congratulations. So being a kind of relatively lay person, I think we all have a pretty good idea of what a chief pilot does, but we'll dive into that. How is the role for you changing now into director of flight?
Well, it's quite similar as so I'm the director of flight here in Miami. Miami is the second largest pilot base for American Airlines. So right now, roughly, we have somewhere between 14,500 to 15,000 pilots. Wow. Our largest pilot base is Dallas. They have 3,500. And here in Miami, myself and we have three chief pilots, and we've been entrusted with a care of 2,500, which makes us the second largest pilot base in Miami. And
I'm sorry, you went through that really quick. There's 14,000 pilots at the Miami base?
No, 14,000 pilots total.
Okay.
We have 2,500 in Miami. Yes.
2,500 in Miami. That's still a lot of pilots. My gosh.
Yes. Yeah. And we're hiring. We're hiring because a lot of us are leaving. So it's a great time.
Great. So 2,500 pilots here in Miami amongst the three chief pilots. So again, how is the flight director role different from chief pilot?
It's just a broader view of our roles here in Miami as for the other three chief pilots is very simple. We're here to take care of our pilots, help them take care of their families, and we'll take care of American Airlines collectively together, and we'll do it in that order. So any obstacles, any hindrance to themselves and their personal life, and if we're allowed into their private life, that we can help with, will certainly help mitigate with that. We have the tools here. As a director, your capacity has to increase. You have a broader view of the operation, and not only the operation just strictly here in Miami, but any touch point that any of our pilots fly to. We fly to 43 international destinations out of here out of Miami, which is of all the American Airlines bases, the one with the largest international footprint. So any issues abroad, any operational issues or pilot issues that happens at any of those destinations, and there's where my capacities had to increase for that.
So how is the role, the chief pilot role, shared amongst the three chiefs? Do they have different responsibilities, or just there's always a chief available?
Well, we always have a chief available because this hub is 22-hour hub operation. So our what we call deep south flights, Rio de Janeiro, Buenos Aires, Santiago, Chile, they usually leave somewhere between 11 to almost 1 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. At 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, the Europe flights are checking in for their flight. So if there's any issues with that, then we'll be brought into the mix to try to mitigate that. And then our first arrivals, the deep south arrivals, the return flights back are arriving around 4:30, 5 o'clock. Sometimes, depending on the weather, they might even beat customs opening. So I'll have to sit a little bit in the airplane. So there's a little bit of a window between 1 to 4 o'clock where things are usually calm, and then things can happen after that. So
it's basically it's a round-the-clock operation. So 24 hours in a day, it's kind of divided that way. Like every chief, there's a chief on duty around the clock.
Yeah, so the always chief on duty. All of us are Airbus captains, all the current chiefs. So, but we have an issue with a crew member on the 777 here in Miami. We have 777s, 787s, and then we have both narrow body airplanes based here, the 737 NG, and now we have the Max. The Max is solely based here in Miami. I think they picked the best pilots to fly those airplanes, so that's why they're here in Miami. I'm a little biased, but I think we have the best. And then all the three versions of the Airbus, we fly the 319, 320, and 321, and now we're receiving the 321 Neos, and we're using using that to go a little further south in South America to Lima and places like that. So if
Well, it sounds like you've got a full deck here. You've got just about everything
yes,
flying in out of Miami International. I'm actually going to be on one of those deep south flights you talked about, going to Sao Paulo at the beginning of June. It'll be our first live seminar in in over 2 years. In over two
oh
years.
wow,
Yeah, so
well,
we'll be doing one in Sao Paulo June 5th. Never been to Brazil.
oh.
Really looking forward to it. And of course, flying American Airlines on the way down there, one of those long overnights, right?
Well, thank you for any time that you fly on us, you're helping a lot of families here in South Florida. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for choosing us.
Well, that's a great place to start. So, American Airlines has such a deep history here in South Florida. Going back to, oh my gosh, his name escapes me right now. I actually helped to write a chapter about him in the GMA book. But there was a director back in I think it was the 80s, right, with the taking over of Eastern's routes and all that. It really grew American Airlines in South America. And gosh, Miami has such a strong history. American, Eastern, Pan Am. It's a kind of this continuous kind of path. And so, if you ask anybody, and aviation in South Florida is huge. 1 in 4 jobs in Miami-Dade tied to aviation, and just about everyone knows an American Airlines captain, right?
Yes,
I think actually I might have heard you say that at one of your presentations. Everyone knows American Airlines captain.
that's correct. Yeah, you go to any kind of gathering, any kind of either family or group gathering, and just ask, does anybody know, somebody that works for American Airlines or somebody that works for American Airlines, and you'll always see a couple of hands raised. Our hub's been we started this hub in 1930. I'm sorry, 32 years ago is when we started the hub, and it started with 14 flights.
14.
This summer, 14 total flights. Yes, and the this summer between us and regional, it'll be close to 400 flights a day.
Oh my gosh, that's excellent. That's excellent. And so you remind me of something that I love to do at the beginning, and I kind of missed it. We've got our audience here in the Zoom with us, and we've got some people live on the Facebook stream as well. So I love to hear in the chat. Please let us know where you're watching us from. If you're here in Miami, if you're in Dallas, if you're in Peru, if you're in Europe, let us know where you're from. And of course, feel free to put in questions. There's a Q&A button right here at the bottom of the screen. And same for anyone watching on Facebook. Put in some questions, because we love to get some questions for Captain Alfaro towards the end and kind of see what's on your mind. I know for a fact that we have at least 1 or 2 American Airlines pilots in the chat with us, and I'm sure they've got good questions for the boss, right? So what I was reaching for over there was because my memory missed me. So years ago, we wrote this GMA, Greater Miami Aviation Association History of, and there's a whole chapter dedicated to Peter DeLora, who I believe was the director that really grew the base down here in South Florida, to the point where it was the heat played in the American Airlines arena until recently, right?
Yes, yes.
And yeah, it's so ingrained here in South Florida. Now, you are from South Florida, right?
Yes, so I was born in Cuba, and like many of us were fortunate and blessed enough to come here to Miami and make Miami our home. I learned how to fly in Tamiami and started at a little commuter airline loading bags when I was 17 years old, because I wanted to be a pilot. Didn't know how I was going to do it. It's always been a financial kind of strain. As always, back then, and I like to refer back in the 1870s when I was learning to fly. You could get like a 152 for anywhere between $8 and $11 an hour, and a 172 for less than $20 an hour. And you hear that, and you say that now to, all the students and all the ones that are in aviation. They go, "Oh my God, that is that's so cheap back then." I go, "Yeah, but realize I was loading bags at the Miami International Airport, and I was making $1.97 an hour."
Yeah.
So to get 1 hour of flying, it's always been just kind of like that. So to get 1 hour of flying, I had to work a whole day and then some. So it's always been a struggle. This profession does weed out a lot of people, but I can assure you that if you stick with it, you follow the plans that your school has or your instructor has developed for you, and you stick with it, that it will pay off. And hard work, you got, nothing's going to be given to you, and there's no shortcuts in this career, and especially to make it this level. But if you follow the plan that's been designated by your school or your instructor, you will make it, and it'll be worth it. I can guarantee you.
You're absolutely right. There's no shortcuts in aviation. And I know for a fact there's a lot of baggage handlers, ramp agents, cabin crew that are trying to make that move into the cockpit. I can think of at least a half a dozen that are flying with us. And they're, at every little school here in South Florida, that are working during the week, saving up. Now, American Airlines has their own American Airlines union, and I think they just recently started doing loans for flight training themselves. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Because there's this huge pilot shortage. And last time we talked, so a few months ago, I know you had talked about how they were stepping up the pilot hiring from from 700 to 1,000. And last I heard just last week, from 1,000 to 2,000 hires. Is that right for this year?
Yes, yeah. So this year we're in a place to I think right around 2,100 or better. Wow. We started last year with a goal of and the goal started, and I think it was like in September, October timeframe, they wanted to start hiring, and they go, "Well, we'll probably maybe try to hire 300." They ended up with about 700, and then at one time we were hiring 90 pilots a week.
Wow,
that's 360 pilots a month. That is, in 1 month, that's a larger number that we have sometimes in years put together, and. Now, and we kept that going all the way through towards the middle of March. And then what was happening was we were creating a bottleneck for training because I was thinking about that. So because we still have, we still have pilots that are changing equipment because we're hiring so many pilots. We have a lot of first officers upgrading to captains, narrow body captains upgrading to wide body captains, and so and then plus the ones that are staying in the same airplane. Every year we have our continued qualification training, and then now we just put in 360 new into the pipeline every month. So what they've done is backed it off. So now and they saved down, which is still a remarkable amount. We're doing 45 a week.
45 a week. It's still a lot. My gosh.
Yes.
From 90, I can't imagine. Your flight training department must have been really struggling with that. Now, we say it every time, now's the best time I've ever seen to become a pilot. But now if you're in the industry, really the big goal, the mountaintop, is getting to a carrier like American Airlines, right? Like when somebody gets to American Airlines, like that's it. There's nowhere else to go. You're a lifer now, right?
Yes.
So what is that process like? Let's say you're already experienced. Maybe you've been flying the 135 world or the regionals. What's it like? Are you involved in the interviews? Is it entirely an HR process at this point?
So let me start from the end process and work our way back. So if you get hired now with American Airlines, well, we're telling our new hires that in 4 years from today that you get hired, expect to be a narrow body captain.
Okay.
They're also telling them that if you get hired now, expect to be a wide body captain in 10 years. I just set up before then, my generation, 25 to 30 years before you can hold the wide body captain. So that's how much has moved forward. So with that being in place, and I love your intro about be the captain. That's what we're looking for. 96 years of history of American Airlines, I can proudly say that we've never hired a first officer. You might be a first officer because of seniority and because you just showed up here, but the qualities of be a captain, the leadership, the qualities, the professionalism, that's what we're looking for. So because you're going to be a narrow body captain in 4 years, our priority now is to try to find people with PIC time, because it's going to happen so quickly. Because of that, our hiring, and I'm proud to say, is not an HR total run interview process and hiring. We still have pilots. We have line pilots, men and women that volunteer in their days off to go to Dallas to fly from here, South Florida, and throughout the country to be part of that interview process, to maintain that level, that high standard of professionalism that we have and we've cultivated here as our culture here at American Airlines. And to maintain that, we have a hiring pool that even though we draw large amount of numbers every month, it still keeps the standard has not gone down. The level and quality of pilots that we have, that we're receiving, and we'll have 22 tomorrow, new hires. The quality it hasn't gone down at all, and I'm very proud to say that. So,
all right. So, I mean, at your level, clearly anyone who's applying at American Airlines has thousands of hours, has the experience, knows how to fly, right? So what are you looking for in a candidate? Like, who makes the cut to be an American Airlines captain, first officer?
Well, the cut is there is an online test that you do, and then the HR is the life experience, the quality of your flying. I try to tell when I meet young men and women that are being pilot, I go, take everything you can from every hour that you fly, every bit of experience that you can, learn as much. Every license, your private pilot license has as much value to you as your first ATP or your first 747. Gather as much information. Just be a sponge and gather as much as you can from every rating and every license that you take every time you sit next to an instructor, because that is building the qualities that we're looking for. So when you're sitting across from an interviewer, another pilot, and an HR person, the stories are always scenario based. Tell us of a time that you were flying and this happened, that that you've had that experience, you have the confidence, and that experience taught you, because every time we fly, we learn something. I'm proud to say that I've never had the perfect flight, but that's never going to stop me from trying. And that should always be our goal, and we always learn from it. So be able to communicate that in a interview process, be positive, eye contact, know and have the confidence that everything that has been taught to you, every process that you've gone through in this career and this profession, that has led you to this moment, and you'll be successful in an interview.
Well, that's interesting. All right, so it's mostly about that life experience that brought you to be sitting in that chair, right? Something I hear often from hiring captains also is they're looking for someone they can spend a 3 or 4 day trip with, right? Yes. Someone that they can rely on, they can work with, right? The soft skills side, because clearly your technical skills are there if you meet the requirements to be sitting in the chair. Mm-hmm. That's so interesting, and that's come up several times. Now, you hear about a lot of these cases, especially over the last 2 years, with a lot of rambunctious passengers and things like that. But I have to say, I don't think really have heard anything regarding American Airlines. It's been pretty steady through this time, and even though there was the massive cutbacks over the last 2 years of the pandemic, it came back full force, right? Came back full force. Well, when do you think? I think last time we spoke, you said you were already in the 90th percentile, right, as far as where you were in 2019. Are we there? Are we beyond even where we were in 2019?
Actually, we're this summer will be higher, specifically in the Miami hub. We'll be actually higher with more flights and more capacity than we did in 2019. Um, during the pandemic, American Airlines was very aggressive. Um, we had more flights during the pandemic. One out of every three passengers that flew during the time frame flew an American Airlines airplane. We've increased the gating here. We got more gates here in Miami. We got more flights. Well, this summer we'll have more flights than we did in the summer of 2019 to more destinations.
Excellent. Now you gave me an interesting little fact. We scheduled this because you said that after May, good luck, right? Because you're so busy between May and September, right? That's the bulk of it. Explain to me kind of like those ebbs and flows of the airline.
Okay. So, and most of the airlines are the same. So between Memorial Day and Labor Day is 107 days. And those 107 days typically, and we always try to be at the higher end, most airlines will make somewhere between 70 and 80% of their profits.
Wow.
Notice I didn't say revenue, I said profits. Okay. That's a big difference.
Sure.
And the other 20 percent and change is during, the holiday, and then specifically here in Miami, where other after the summer drawdown and other parts of the country and other hubs, what happens in Miami is we draw down after Labor Day, but it doesn't last. It only lasts for a month and a half, because guess what happens in the middle of October and November? Cruise ships, tourism.
Oh, right.
Everybody
Yeah.
wants to, snowbirds, everybody wants to come down. So as other bases and other areas are drawing down from the summer schedule, we get a short reprieve, and then we're right back up. Not to the same level as the summer, but very close to it. And then that carries us through um, uh, Christmas, and then depending when Easter falls, it lasts about then. And you know how I mean, the best place to be in the world, January, February,
Right here.
is down here in South Florida. Best time to fly
Mm.
is January, February, and March, because the weather, the air's smoother and it's cooler, and everything's a lot better. So that's when
Mm.
most of the people are passengers are trying to come down here, and that's when our flying is still at an elevated level, and then it drops down, and then again we start rocking and rolling again on Memorial Day.
So it doesn't really stop. Did you have any little spike for the F1 last week where we had so many people in town? The executive
Uh,
airports were jammed. Opalaka
yes.
Airport was packed full of jets.
We had the impact that we had was um, we've been all spring, we've been breaking records. So the previous records for passenger um, employment and deplaning here in Miami was the Super Bowl, the
Sure.
Super Bowl that we had in 2020. We have broken those records multiple times over Christmas. It started in Christmas and into January, February, March. So we've broken that with no events. The impact that we had from the F1 was um, the numbers were still the same, because weekends we still see a lot of folks flying in, and our so the business travel is not quite
Sure.
what it was before. But so what we're seeing is it's they're starting to get out
Hmm.
the business travel, but they're combining a little vacation trip with it.
Sure.
Well, before, they would fly out Monday, return Friday or Thursday afternoon. Now they're turning a little vacation trip into it for the weekend. So our weekend numbers are higher, and so that's been adding to it. What we saw, so no really big difference to the F1. Long way to tell you the story, but no big significant increase for the F1. It did, however, it did impact our hub here because of ATC.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we couldn't even do instrument approaches yesterday because all the F1 executive traffic was flying out. So, well, not yesterday. It was Monday. Monday, in
Yeah.
particular. Yesterday we were a little bit better. But I imagine that specific to Miami, because it's such an international hub, probably all that pent up. In the U.S. we feel all this pent up travel. Everybody wants to go on a cruise or come down to sunny South Florida. But I imagine everybody sitting in Chile and Peru and Brazil wants to come to Miami too. Right? 'Cause it seems like everybody has a house in Miami. They want to check in on things. They want to, you know, do whatever they do here when they come to the U.S. So I bet that's been a lot of international coming in to the U.S. Yeah.
Yeah, another thing that makes this hub so unique is that it's basically a dual purpose.
Mhm.
From the north, people come here to Miami to vacation.
Sure.
From the south, they come up here because Miami is seen as a business center.
It is. Yeah.
This is one that
Capital
they
of
have.
South America.
Yes, exactly. The capital of Central South America. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's seen, it's the same city seen in two different lights.
Hmm.
And so that gives us a great opportunity, and also a large commitment to try to be to both different groups, because you have to you're catering to somebody in a three-piece business suit with a briefcase, and then also somebody with flip-flops because they're going straight to South Beach. So you have to be you have to kind of cater to both, and I think we do a very good job with that.
Miami does do a very good job of that. American Airlines being kind of like the airline of Miami definitely does a great job of it, right? So let's kind of turn the conversation a little bit more towards you and kind of how you came to be here working for American Airlines. And I know that the everyone on the chat and on Facebook has questions. Feel free to keep typing them in. We will get to your questions. So you learned how to fly in Tamiami, right?
Mhm.
I've been having this conversation a lot, specifically the last 2 weeks. Those first 1,000 hours are the hardest, right?
Mhm.
Because the airlines really start looking at you seriously at 1,500 hours now. Back then, it was even more. And I regularly remember people having to get to 2,000, 3,000 hours before the airlines would look at them. So I'm kind of curious about your first 1,000 hours. Like, how did you get those?
Um, well, the so I learned how to fly, and I got to the 200. I got my commercial multi-instrument. I roughly had about 211, 215 hours.
Nice.
By then, I had gotten my A&P, and I was working in the northwest corner of Miami International Airport. Back then, fondly known as Corrosion Corner, because it was all full of DC-3s, DC-6, 7s, Constellations, everything that belonged in a museum. It was parked over there because we were flying mangoes, baby chickens, and passengers. So I had the 200 and so odd hours, and the gentleman that I was working for was an Eastern Airlines captain that owned a couple DC-3s and the Havilland Herons,
Nice.
and he goes, "If you're interested in flying, I'll put you in the right seat of DC-3 because, hey, you know what? You're added value to me. You fly it, and if you break it, you can fix it because
Yeah.
you're an EMP." So I got hired flying the DC-3 when I had roughly about 211 hours,
So
and
you're a
then
dual threat there, AMP and a pilot. And they still do that. All the DC-3s that fly out of Opelika, every single one of those pilots is required to be an AMP. And there's still
really
at least 3 or 4 DC-3s flying to the Bahamas every day out of Opelika.
every hour you fly, you work on it 3 hours on the ground. I know.
I
it's,
believe it.
but what a great experience. And flew with a lot of older pilots that had tons of experience. Lots of we're all pilots, and the great thing about this profession is we let the airlines compete. We really don't compete pilot against pilot because we're always competing against ourselves to try to make ourselves better. So we're always open to impart knowledge,
Mhm.
open to share ideas and thoughts, because if it made me better, hopefully you can learn something from it, and it'll make you better. Or if you this situation crosses your path, maybe you can remember what an old guy told you a long time ago, and it helped you mitigate it, and it
Sure.
made you better for it. So that's one of the few professions where I think that it makes us special, because we're always trying to make ourselves better, compete, nobody's going to get, we're going to compete against ourselves and try to make ourselves better, and then let the other external forces do that.
Sure.
But we're always open to helping each other out.
That's a great observation. I've always seen a lot of camaraderie among pilots, sharing stories, all the organizations, uh, OBAP, the Organization for Black Aerospace Professionals, the Latino Pilots Association, LPA, the 99s, Female Pilots Association, Women in Aviation. There's a lot of this camaraderie, sharing of stories, and reaching out and reaching down to people that are coming up the ranks, right? Like if you're climbing up the ladder, it's good to reach back and help people up, to grow the aviation profession, and particularly in this moment where we need so many pilots.
Yeah.
So that first job in the DC-3, is that really where you put on the bulk of your time early on in your career?
Yeah, so I stayed there, and I got to close to 4,000 hours flying flying DC-3, and
You must know that bird really well. My gosh.
oh, I still remember. It's always like that first airplane. You still remember, it carried 25 gallons of oil. Total capacity was 29 gallons because you have 4 gallons of foam. It would burn one gallon an hour, 800. So I mean,
Nice.
'cause that was your first love. I mean, that's
Yeah.
you always remember that. So
Yeah, I remember the guys at Oplaga saying, if it's not leaking, you're out of oil. You got to put
that's
more oil in
exactly right.
all the time.
Exactly
Yeah,
right.
next time you're at Oplaga, I'd love to introduce you to those guys. They still do fly them every single day.
Oh, awesome! I would love to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, so 4,000 hours in the DC-3s.
Mhm.
Man, I bet a lot of people would love to do that right now. Now they like raffle off DC-3 flights and for the commemorative Air Force and stuff like that. People pay a lot of money to fly DC-3s now. 4,000 hours is a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Um, so that's so important. So you got that job by working maintenance over in that corner and just kind of making the connections. So I say this a lot to young pilots, right? Nothing is handed to you. All right. You might have this certificate, that certificate, XYZ. You gotta. Aviation's such a small network. You've got to hang out at the FBOs, be friendly, be helpful, give your time, volunteer with the organizations. That's how you beat that person that might have the next job or be your next captain or chief or whatever it might be. So that's interesting the way you got those. So from the DC-3s, you've got your 4,000 hours. Is it straight to airlines at that point?
No, and going back on what you're saying, you have to create your network. You have to create um, a um, a network of friends and professionals and all that. Because
Hmm.
when I got hired with 214 hours, Eastern had just furloughed. Pan Am was furloughing because they had just merged with National Airlines.
Wow.
Braniff was having his issues. There was pilots here with 5, 6, 10,000 hours that were
Yeah.
dying to have that job that I had,
Wow.
and stuff, and more qualified, a lot more
Mhm.
qualified. But by no shortcuts, by showing up, being present every day, doing everything that was asked of me. Change this tire, uh, clean the hangar floor, change the light bulb. Be
Sure.
present, do everything that's asked for you. Hard work, hard work will always pay off. I mean, I can't say that enough. And if you do everything that's asked of you, you're going to see that when the time comes, then it's not a reward, is that, and now is your time.
Mm.
Everything happens at a certain season, and you have
Sure.
to make sure that you have all the tools that have been given to you, that you have the tools and the preparation, so when it's your season, you are ready to go there.
Yeah,
I
be prepared when opportunity presents itself. And I like what you say there about no job too small. I heard a quote recently. I wish I knew who to attribute it to, but it was something along the lines of every job is too big for a small man, and there's no job too big, no job too small for a big man.
Yeah,
I love that. I
yeah.
really want to kind of need to post that up in signs around the building.
No, absolutely. And and a lot of sometimes, like when you're going through the flight schools, you start in a group together flying, and you see, one guy all of a sudden, no, he got a job. We're like, man, I wonder, man, that would have been a great job for me to get. Or, oh man, this guy got a job flying a King Air. I'm still here, 172, just getting, flying around, beating myself up, and this guy like that. And we tend to label, oh, that guy's so lucky, or this guy, or man, this guy lucked out. And and a lot, and some people that I know, and I was one of them. I started to resent that. I started to resent that label of, oh, this guy's so lucky because
Yeah.
he had this happen, until I was talking to one of the one of these OBAP and stuff that we all belong to and stuff like that. This gentleman brought it to my attention. He goes, look, he redefined the definition of luck to me, and it's referring back to that season and preparedness. He goes, what the definition of luck is where opportunity and hard work cross. Because if you didn't do the hard work, right, every opportunity in the world will pass you by because you won't be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And so, but if you
Absolutely.
don't
It
do
takes a
hard
lot of
work,
hard work to get lucky.
yes, exactly. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of hard work to get lucky. Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
So
that's
that's where
excellent.
the two meet.
So then what was your next step after the DC-3s?
So after the DC-3s, I ended up flying down in Colombia, down there for a Alas Chiricano. They were flying this ready-made aircraft. It was called an Arava, and it was short field takeoff, and we're landing on sides of beaches and gravel strips and all that, and got a lot
Wow.
of good experience down there. And then ended up
Sounds like it.
flying for I was DC-9 captain for a charter company called Emerald Airlines. They flew DC-9-10s out of Lauderdale to Nassau to the Bahamas, and they were based out of Atlantic City for the casinos. And then after I got hired with Piedmont Airlines in 1986.
Excellent. All right. And is it that Piedmont is your path up to American Airlines?
Yes. So
Nice.
3 years after I was with Piedmont, there used to be a company out of Pittsburgh. It was called Allegheny Airlines. They had just changed the name to US Air, and then they bought a company out in California called PSA, Pacific South Coast Airline,
Mhm.
and bought us, and then changed the name to US Airways, and then bought a couple more and stuff.
Wow.
So
So, so you've been through all. So first, there's so many things to unpack right there, right? So you are definitely an international pilot. Time spent in Colombia, time spent flying throughout the Bahamas. It makes so much sense because Miami is such an international base.
mhm.
I saw a posting recently for an international chief pilot. I'm like, is that a special thing? I guess so because all of the flights down here are international. Somebody was telling me that they loved being based in Miami because they bid on all the international flights, while a
Mhm.
lot of the American pilots, and he's also Cuban actually, it's, flying for Spirit right now, probably gonna end up in your pool sometime soon. Um, so he was saying that he loves bidding the South American flights because all the Americans that are from Ohio and Illinois, they don't want to fly down to South America. So he gets his pick of the litter and gets to eat really well on every layover, right?
Mhm.
So that's really interesting. So, and that's kind of the big thing because there is so much competition domestically, right? We've got the low cost carriers and the regionals, of course, are supporting American Airlines. You've got three of your own wholly owned
Mhm.
regionals. So really, when I think of the mainland carriers like American Airlines, I do think of those international flights, those long haul flights. What's the longest flight coming out of Miami now?
Tel Aviv is almost 12 hours.
Wow,
Yeah.
that I'm not even sure how that would happen. That's like equatorial. Like, how does that get over there?
And it does a random route across the Atlantic. They coast in around Portugal, just
Really? Okay.
north of the Azores. So they do a random route on the 777 because they can go, 360 minutes single engine, that kind of stuff. So with the engines that we have, so yeah. So that's our longest. It's a four-man crew
Hmm.
because of the flight time. So that's our longest route here out of Miami now.
Tel Aviv. I had no idea there was a direct Miami Tel Aviv, and that makes sense because there is a big Israeli population down here, right?
Yes.
Especially down by the beach. That's the interesting thing about Miami. There's so many pockets of people from everywhere. It's a very multicultural place, and I think really that is the a big part of that is because of American Airlines and just how easy it is to get here, right? How easy it is to get here from just about any part of the world. Clearly, South America, Europe, and Israel. That's really interesting. Now, in all your career, you've been flying now for so long. Do you have a favorite destination? Something that when it comes up, you like to bid on going to this particular place? Do you have a favorite?
Um, I used to, but now my favorite is just flying.
Yeah.
Be able to take off, and um, and doesn't even need to be a long flight anymore because as a director or
Sure.
as our chief pilots, we still have to maintain our currency. We still have to maintain our 3 takeoffs and landings in 90 days. We still have to do our biannual reviews, and training. We still have to contractually, we have to fly so many hours a year. Granted, it's not that much, but just so I try to pick up short flights with a 1 or 2 day with multiple, so I get a lot of practice of taking off and landings, and just get that reputation, and get back into the game of flying. I mean, it's a wrong word of game, but
Oh
um,
yeah,
the,
the
the,
practice of it. Yeah.
yeah, the great thing about flying is whatever else you have,
Mm.
you as pilots, we have to learn how to compartmentalize. We do it when we have a situation or emergency in the airplane where you have to, either delegate tasks or prioritize tasks.
Mhm.
And also in just like normal life that, yeah, I got a plumbing issue at home, but that I have to set that aside. I got to put it aside because I have to be 100% focused on what I'm doing. So it helps you prioritize. It helps you do
Mhm.
the task at hand of what you have to do, and kind of puts everything in the background. And that's so. What's my favorite destination? Uh, you know, V1 at Miami International Airport, because off you going someplace. So
Nice. So you touched on something interesting there that I honestly hadn't occurred to me until just now. There must have been some point in your career where you are, you're 100% pilot, and then
mhm,
this opportunity comes to go into management, right?
mhm.
Was that a gradual thing? Did the opportunity just pop up? How did you come into being part of operations versus just being the line pilot?
um, by circumstance. I was so at U.S. Airways we flew the E190, the big brother of the 170, 175 that a lot of our regionals had. I had it was a brand new airplane to our fleet, so we didn't have the pairing limitations that we do. Like now, we don't pair two pilots together that either one of them has less than 75 hours, together. So it's pairing limitation, and it's a safety thing. But when it's a new airplane, everybody's got less than 75 hours.
Sure.
So I had a brand new FO just out of IOE, and I had 35 hours, and had an FAA inspector on board, and we're going from Philadelphia to Boston. And what I found out later on was that the airplane, while it was being delivered from Brazil, had a lightning strike.
Oh,
So short flight, Philly to, Boston's, 50 some minutes in the air
yeah.
over just on the other side of JFK, outside of Providence. We had multiple bus faults, failures where we're losing the cabin, couldn't control the temperature, half brakes, spoilers, half flaps, had multiple
Jeez.
situations. And so this FAA guy that was in the jump seat kind of liked the way that our crew coordination was. We let training kick in.
Excellent.
We did all the stuff that we're supposed to do, and he was impressed how we handled the situation. Came and landed, made a soft landing. The ARF equipment followed us to the gate. It took him 4 days before the airplane would even take power, um,
Wow. Something was
receive
really
power
wrong there.
to do that. And so he wrote a nice letter to a training fleet captain, and they were looking for check airmen to do IOEs, line check airmen, and he offered me the job to do that. And that, unbeknownst to me, sent me on this path to here. Um, you know, um, Anything that you do in your career that can highlight you, whether you seek it or just kind of falls in your lap, like hello me, and so that highlight you, and anything that you do above and beyond being a check airman, work in a safety department. Even with us here, volunteer to do with union positions, volunteer to do community events. We're very involved with the community down here in South Florida. Anything that you do extra, is going to highlight you, and it's also another piece that you bring that can elevate you to the next level. So I started on that path in the training department. I thought I was just going to stay there because I really enjoyed training. I thought it was my passion, but I found out later that my actual passion was helping people, and that's what led
That's
me
great.
to the officer. So
That's interesting. That's interesting. Uh, wow. So it was probably one of your worst flights led to one of your best opportunities,
yes,
right?
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And uh, and you're right. Since I've met you, I've been very impressed because I can't think of a busier guy whose phone is always going off than American Airlines chief and director of flight operations. And yet you managed the time to go out and speak to Miami-Dade College, to speak to Florida Memorial. Both of those are Wayman partners, and really happy to be supporting them. And
Mhm.
really are going out there and doing a lot of outreach. It's very impressive. Is it? Um, that's on your own time, I imagine, right? That's just kind of spreading the word, spreading the gospel of aviation,
Right.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it's very impressive. And you're absolutely right about taking that extra step, right? So I always recommend to students that they join, a good pilot organization, whether it's the 99s or OPAP or LPA, whatever it might be. But don't just pay the $20 fee. Volunteer, right?
Mhm.
Go to a career fair, go to an open house. You might be the 100-hour private pilot that volunteered, but the guy who's going with you is, an American Airlines captain, right? Or an envoy first officer. And then you get to know him and gotta get to know the ropes. Now you've got that contact, right? Because, like I said, it's not enough to have the hours and certificates. As much as you are hiring, and everyone's hiring right now, it's important to have that contact, like somebody to kind of get that, you know, put your resume in now. Let me see if I can send a letter of recommendation. So important, letter of recommendations.
Mhm.
So that's great that you do as much outreach as you do. Absolutely. And American Airlines in general is such a generous company. It's a lot of charities that they support, not just in
Mhm.
Miami, but really throughout the country, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so great stuff going on.
And I think it's trying to give back to, for us as pilots, to a profession that's given us so much. They're one thing that we're doing now here. So the Kogan accident back in 2006, I think it was 2007.
Yeah.
One of the last pieces of that ruling of that accident was that all the airlines are required to develop what we call PLM, professionalism, leadership, and mentoring program. Um, the good captains have always been that.
Sure.
Good captains have always, and there's a saying that somebody's been mentored always has a better line of sight, has a better vision of things going on than the one that's actually doing the mentoring, because he's standing on shoulders of giants. So you have a better visibility. So we're having classes like this every day here at our hub for captains and wide body FOs. Any pilot that sits in the left seat, because 60% of us will be retired within the next 6 years at American Airlines. So we're using
60%.
this.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're allowing this to be the opportunity for our leaders, our captains, or soon to be captains, to leave that 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 footprint on the ones that are behind us, to make sure that they are standing on shoulders of giants, because we have such great men and women here. They are those giants that they'll hopefully, with this program, they're going to even be better pilots, better mentors, better leaders, better professionals than we are, because they have the hindsight and the legacy of us that are getting ready to walk out the door.
Now that's got to be a challenge in of itself, because when you think of a captain, it is leadership, right? You're leading a crew, you're leading cabin crew, passengers, all those things. Managing an organization of leaders, leading an organization of leaders, is that more challenging, or is it everyone kind of gets it and follows better when you're a good leader? What do you think about that?
It's adapting to to each leader. We are pilots tend to be leader, type to be type A personalities, guys that just, just keep throwing, men and women that just keep throwing stuff on my shoulder. I can handle it. Throw me in, coach. I got this, and all that. And as their leader, you need to be aware of when you can say, okay, that's you got enough. I need to step in and help you. You may need help with this. Um, you need to be able to, and I attribute that to like a two-man crew. You have the pilot flying, and he's wrestling the alligator, right? You can have an engine out, and he's there sweating, and he's, his vision is like the inside of a straw, right? And stuff. And the other guy, the pilot not flying, or the pilot monitoring, which is what we call it American Airlines, that's running checklists and all that stuff. He's not task loaded, so his field of vision, so he can see everything. Oh, you're missing this, you're missing this, you're missing that, even though he's wrestling the alligator and doing a great job because of field of vision. So, but sometimes by stepping back as a leader and getting a wider view of what's happening, you can maybe interject and help out another leader.
That's interesting, and that's a soft skill that we teach here, is that you've got to be able to look at the details, but not lose sight of not lose the forest for the trees, right? And it is something that people tend to go one way or the other. They're either very generalist or very narrow. But I guess as a pilot, you really have to be both. We're getting to the end of our time, but we do have a couple of questions. I see on our Facebook we have a couple of people that have asked questions. This is more about on the technical side. Roy here wants to know about total time and turbine time to be competitive, or to expect a call for an interview at American Airlines. I mean, I know the minimums are published, but are you kind of taking anyone that applies with those minimums, or are you looking for a threshold?
No, I mean, the minimum is what it's a minimum. I do tell I tell pilots that are interested a couple of things that will highlight you. And we've spoken a couple of them already. If you're a check airman, if you're doing anything outside, that will highlight you. Sure. Another thing is keep updating. Every time that you update, you're sending a signal to American Airlines that, hey, you know what? He's still out there, and he's still interested in being an American Airlines pilot. And then if you know an American Airlines pilot, or someone that you've flown with that can write your letter of recommendation, those three things will kind of keep you at the top of the stack, so to speak, for lack of a better term. I think one of the minimums is like 450 hours or 500 hours turbine PIC time. So any time after that, now you're marketable.
That's interesting. All right, so it's not so much the minimums; it's all the others, or like if you're applying for college, all the extracurriculars, as they say, right? Have you gone above and beyond? That's interesting. That's interesting. Roy also has a question about how do you recommend preparing for the pilot skills assessments. Now, like we talked about a moment ago, I think if you're applying for American Airlines, you can fly at this point, right? You should be able to pass the basics. But what I'm more curious about is that there are people out there that offer the career coaching, that will prep you for interviews and those kind of things. Do you think that works? Is that a smart way to go?
I think so, because it just it gives you a heightened awareness of what they're looking for, and then kind of coach you up. I know that at U.S. Airways, I did interviews for a short time, because we used to use check airman, which I was at the time, to do the technical part of the interview. And you could, as an interviewer, you could definitely tell who has. And it's just another way of preparing. So it's just like when somebody shows up to a check ride, somebody shows up to an oral, somebody shows up to an interview, you know who's prepared and who's not prepared. Yeah. And that, using one of those coaching things, it's another resource that you have available to you of being prepared.
Absolutely. You don't want to be on the not prepared list. You want to be on the very prepared list, right?
It never works out. Yeah, it never works out well when you're on the not prepared list. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, being as much outreach as you do, and as many, you've probably mentored countless pilots, from the beginning and middle and pretty far along in their careers. Um, what advice would you give to your very junior, just got their commercial or just about to get their commercial pilot? What advice would you give to that kind of aviator?
So you have your licenses, but you need the experience. Find someone that's slightly above you, or a mentor, or the school that you just finished getting your ratings, because they've they've been through this road many times before, so they can guide you on whatever, and the path that you seek, because not all roads lead to the same place. I mean, we know there's different opportunities to get to where you want to be. So reach out to the ones before you, the ones that have are maybe at 1,500 hours, or just got to an Envoy or a Piedmont or a PSA Airlines, and ask them, how did you get here, and learn from them, because they'll first of all, they're going to tell you is what, like, we're pilots, right? You come in from a check ride, and you go, hey, so tell me how it went, and we're going to tell them everything that we did wrong. I was off 10 degrees off this heading. I did this. I was down 50 feet. I thought, no, hey, you passed the check ride. We always, so that person is going to tell you every mistake that they made to get to the 1,500 hours. So learn from that. Try not to make the same ones, and follow their guidance.
So let's do three levels of this, right? So we've got the 250-hour guy. So you've got 1,500-hour Mr. CFI, right? He just finally he celebrated. He just got 1,500 hours. The world's his oyster now. What do you do? How do you choose? It seems like everyone wants that guy or girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, well, and it's a great place to be, because you know now now you can go to the regionals.
Hmm.
When I got hired, the biggest thing I've seen from our generation to the generation now is, um, when we got hired, we changed our lives to match the airline that rolled the dice and said, you know what, I'm going to pick you, Domingo, because I think you're you'll be a great fit here for XYZ airline. And back then, as part of your interview, they put you in a simulator. All of us, as part of our interview, we would go in the sim, and you walk into the sim on an airplane you never flown before, never even seen before, and they gave you this piece of paper to go, they want you to do this, enter the hold, and come back and land. I go, okay, where's you know where's anything,
Sure.
and to do that, we don't do that anymore, because, like you said, Eddie, the expectation is you got to this level, you know how to fly. The way that the training schools are now, the way that all the automation and technology to get the pilots prepared to do that now manifests itself, because you don't go in the sim to get as part of your interview, because the expectation is that, have you gone through a Wayman, you know how to fly. You have the not only the basics principles, but you have the advanced principles of aviation, and you know how to fly. So now everything else is what comes into place to help.
Excellent. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so then that third level, you've got someone who's been flying for a while, like they're at the low cost carriers or the regionals, and they're ready to make that step to the main line, right?
Mhm.
Um, that I feel like that's talk about a pyramid. You're getting to the top of the pyramid there, right? How does somebody what should somebody be thinking about when they're making that step, where to apply and where to go and
Mhm.
take that final step?
Well, it depends what stage of life you're in. Like I said, now there's so many opportunities that you can pick the airline, and I hope it's American, but that you pick the one that works best for your life, for your family, for your family's life, for your life. Where if you want to if you want to live in Denver, then you probably go get hired by United,
Hmm,
because they have a base there.
sure.
If you want to live in Phoenix, then American, because we have a base there.
All right.
Or So you want to live in Seattle, well, it's going to probably be Alaska. So now you can because they're all hiring, they're all looking for qualified folks. So now you're the one that's choosing to a certain extent on who you want to apply for, who you want to try to get on with. I can tell you here personally, we've had in our new hire classes, we've had pilots leaving United, pilots leaving Southwest, pilots leaving, the other tier, Frontier and Spirit, because hey, I live here, and I got hired with this airline. I don't want to commute anymore. My whole family's here. My life is going to be here. So I'm gonna get the airline that best matches me, as opposed to how I used to be before. Right. I got hired by Piedmont Airline, and I got based in Roanoke, Virginia. I didn't couldn't even find it in a map, much less spell it and stuff. And that was my first crew base. So
that's interesting. Wow, that is such a big change just in the last 5-10 years. It's really interesting and really exciting for everyone coming up. I thank you so much for giving us an hour of your very busy afternoon. Any last thoughts of how people could reach out to American Airlines, learn more? I imagine American Airlines website, right? I know you've got a great cadet program going on, and we hope to be part of that cadet program one day. What's a great way to reach out?
So pretty much everything's online. So with the cadet program, also the credit union, AA credit union is also, you can join. It doesn't just not have to be an American Airlines. You can, anyone can join that credit union.
Really? Wow.
It will allow help you with financing, because now they're approving for flying. Mm-hmm. And helping you pay for the flying. So everything's on website. I know that Wayman is a great partner in advancing the aviation. We live in I think in the very magical place. It's the birthplace, I think, of aviation. It's a center of aviation here, and anything that I can do, and I know you're on board with that, to promote it, to make it better than it is, then we're always available for it, and we'll definitely support it and be on board with it. So I thank you for the opportunity to talk to everyone, and enjoy it, and look forward to doing it again.
Thank you so much, Captain Alfaro. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And those of you that listen to the podcast, make sure to like and subscribe, following us on all the social media, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is you like, at Wayman Aviation on all those platforms. Thank you so much, Captain Alfaro, and thank you much, everyone, for listening this afternoon. Have a great flight and be the captain. Thank you.